I can hear you call my name. I can hear you call my name. I can hear you call my name. Come to the table, cup runneth over. Come drink your fill and be well.
We have a special guest. His name is Matt. I came across one of his interviews, and it was the most profound, phenomenal video and testimony I've heard in a very long time. It's just riveting. Please stay tuned for this testimony. Thank you for joining us, Matt. I can't wait to hear your story. Please start from the beginning.
Sure. Thank you for having me. It's always an honor to do everyone's show. I try to say yes to as many people as possible, and you and I've been talking on and off for the past couple of weeks, and I've been looking for it.
Fine.
So just to give everyone an idea of who I am, my name is Matt Empsch. I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, which is smack dab in the middle between both Cleveland, Ohio, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's an hour either way to each. So we're in the middle. So you're either a Cleveland Browns or Pittsburgh Steeler fan, go Steelers. And, I grew up there. I live in a suburb out of, Youngstown, so not far from there. So still in the area. This experience that I had that we're going to talk about tonight actually happened the second week of June in 1987. I was 14 years old and I had just gotten out of eighth grade. And what was going on was, it was just like anybody else that gets out of school for the summer. You're ready to blow off steam and have fun. And we were in full swing. It was, during a time, unfortunately, Youngstown has gone through a lot of ups and downs through the years. So, where this event took place was actually in the old steel mills of Youngstown, Ohio. Youngstown used to be one of the bigger steel makers in America. And when the bottom fell out in the steel industry back in the day, Youngstown was really, kicked hard, and they lost a lot. A lot of people moved out of the area. And what ended up happening down in the downtown area where the steel mills were, they just basically started rusting away and falling apart. We like to go from every area of Youngstown, not only the city, we go to all the suburbs, we'd walk, we'd ride our bikes. We went everywhere. We liked going down in this area of the steel mill. Now, I just want to make it clear that, it wasn't just right at where the steel used to be made. This was a gigantic area that went for miles. So there were wooded areas. There's, the Mahoning River, which is a big river that goes through Youngstown and Warren, Ohio, and all kinds of other cities and townships and suburbs around Youngstown. Interestingly enough, the Mahoning River, as it cuts through downtown Youngstown, if you were to follow it, it would take you to the outskirts in one area, which is a metro park called Mill Creek Park, which you can look up online. And it's a big park there that you could follow that waterway to or from. And you hear a lot of people talk about when there's events of high strangeness, be it paranormal, cryptid, or what. Water is always one of those things that's connected. Gives a lot of energy and power to high strangeness. And so, there would definitely be with a situation where, like what happened with me in an event of a cryptid experience, they follow that waterway and you're taken back to this park, the giant, big park that, cave areas, tons of wooded areas and other waterways around there as well. Many places to hide and hang out. You know, in the wooded areas surrounded that surround Youngstown, you know, the more rural areas, a lot of woods, a lot of farm areas and stuff like that. You know, the one thing about Youngstown is you will get extremes. You'll get the extreme of the city in one area, then you'll get your suburb, you know, normal neighborhoods and stuff, and then you can go a little farther and you're in the middle of nowhere, tons of woods and farming areas and stuff. So you get every kind, and definitely, you know, a lot of wild animals, deers. You know, sometimes you'd see deers end up in, to this day, of course, you know, in fact, more so now than used to be. You'll see a deer end up in the city area, and it's, you know, just a sign that they're obviously coming from somewhere. So it was either a Wednesday or a Thursday. I had did a documentary with a gentleman by the name of David Wolf recently that's going to be coming out in spring. He has he's the owner and creator of ETS, or Exposing the Strange. And we did this documentary, and he was talking to me about my cryptid encounter, and we were wondering, he wondered actually about the phases of the moon during that time. Now, that's not something that's hard to look up. You look it up very easily. And we did, as we were actually cleaning up after this documentary. We did in Mill Creek Park, ironically. And the middle of the week, starting on the Wednesday, second week of June 1987, full moon. I've had stuff going on with me ever since I was a little kid. My entire life that you know has continued to this day. Nothing to the level of what, you know, I'm speaking about right now and highlighting. And, you know, we were talking about, you and I and some other people doing another interview, and we can do that, and we can touch on the other instances that occurred, and there's quite a few. You know, there's a lot of talk also about people that have sensitivity to high strangeness, and a lot of things that frequently occur with people. A lot of familial ties. I'm half Lebanese and half German Irish, and on the Lebanese side of my family, going way back to like even I think in an experience my great aunt had in Lebanon, where she was attacked by a jinn, and we can talk about that at a later time. And
oh, absolutely, great, yes, I want to hear.
I've just been really connected to things, and always have noticed details no other people do, extreme detail, and just things occur with me that it is just not normal, and not, you know, what happens every day with a lot of people. And definitely on the Lebanese side of my family. So jumping back into what happened with us in 1987, it was roughly 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. It was night, and, you know, Youngstown is not the safest city even today. Definitely when this occurred was not a safe town. You know, one of the unfortunate monikers Youngstown's had through the years multiple times is Murder Town, USA, which was going on right at this time. And per capita, Youngstown, unfortunately, has had highest murder rates in the country 5-6 times through the decades. And this was going on at this time, a lot of gang activity. You know, the mob was still very big, and, you know, people don't hear about the mob, but they're still there. And Youngstown was always called like Little Chicago, and a lot of ties to that. And so when we'd be down in this giant area of the steel mills, you know, we'd see strange cars sometimes. You know, you'd see some gang activity. You'd see, you know, big black limousines and stuff, and, you know, they'd find bodies down there. People would get rid of bodies, and they do drug deals down there, and you'd hear gunshots regularly. And definitely we would try to avoid seeing anyone down there. One of the things that we definitely 100% wanted to avoid more than anything were packs of wild dogs. Anybody that's heard my experience before, which is pretty well known, you know, I always talk about, you know, you have cities that are bigger, you know, like around me, like Cleveland or Detroit, Michigan, and stuff, you have areas of dilapidation where buildings are falling apart, and you know, neighborhoods are ghost towns because people have moved away because of financial reasons. And what ends up happening is either by dogs running away from home, being let go, or being born in the wild, you have packs of these domesticated dogs, which are wild. They're not brought up and taught in families and the loving pooch that you want to pet and run up to. These are dangerous animals, and when they're in packs, they will attack human beings, they'll kill people. In fact, over a few year period, when my encounter happened with my three friends, there were two homeless people that unfortunately met their demise down in that area. It was said that wild dogs were what killed them, but there are some thoughts that I'll touch on a little later that it might not have been just wild dogs that killed one or both of these poor souls. And we would end up, and you can, and I'll actually give to you, I'll send it to you, a picture of the blast furnace area, an actual picture of where we hung out down there. It's on Google, and I actually have it, and I'll send it, and everyone will be able to see. You know, if you go and you Google, anybody watching, Google old steel mills, Youngstown, Ohio, old blast furnace, Youngstown, Ohio, the actual picture will show up of this building. Usually what pops up is the same picture in black and white or color, and you'll see the blast furnace on your left in the picture. You'll see a railroad track with a train on it on the right side, and the railroad track was very close to this blast furnace. And you know, they would utilize those railroad tracks to ferry material in and out. There are three, I believe, working steel mills that are newer businesses that are down in that area now. The blast furnace that we had our experience at no longer exists. They demolished it years ago. All of the old facilities are gone. If you Google that area on Google Maps or Google Earth, and you can do an overhead, you'll see, actually, you can pick out the areas where these old steel mills used to be. There's big, you know, mounds of you just could tell there were structures there. And what we would do in this blast furnace, we liked it because the wild dogs couldn't get in there. There were no stairs to get into this building, and we liked that. There was privacy after we made it private. So it was a 4-floor building that on the first floor, there were north, south, east, and west walls that all were opened on the first floor. We found hundreds of what many believe now are milling shields that are basically, you know, shaped like old gladiator shields that kind of bend backwards towards you. Well, I had for so many interviews said, you know, man, I wish I knew what these things were. I started getting reached out by people in steel making industry, and people say, you know, that sounds to me like those are milling shields. Makes perfect sense. I've seen pictures of new ones. They have more straight angles. These were just kind of real smooth bend back, but look very similar to milling shields. That's what I'm going to think they were. They had hundreds of these things. They weighed at least 100 pounds each. It took two of us to move them. And what we did is we ended up on each wall putting one row across the entire opening, and then two of us would pick one up and we'd stack them and made a second row. So it was probably, I don't know, 8 feet high, but there was still at the top of that second row, there was a big amount of open space still, because we went back years later after this event happened, and we did some measurements and guesstimations about how big the building was in certain areas, because there were foundation pillars in the building that went from, I mean, of course, it would have to be in the ground, then went all the way up to the top of the building, and there were 4 of them in the corner of each room. They were about 4 or 5 feet wide. The ceilings were roughly 18 to 20 feet high. So if we had about 8 feet high of these milling shields to make a makeshift wall, you have 12 more feet about that was open. So, we would have fires in there, and we wanted to keep prying eyes out. And we weren't doing anything nefarious. It's just, if we were in there and the railroad track was being used all the time, someone came by and saw us in there, they would call the cops, and we would be in trouble, or security. And we didn't want that. So, even if we had a fire in there and we had those walls up, there's still light escaping. So again, fast forward, it's 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. We had a huge fire going. And just to let everybody know as well, in the center of the room on the first floor, if you walked to the center of the room, you could look up and you could see all the way up to the ceiling on the fourth floor, because there were squares cut out in the center of the second, third, and fourth floors. So if you were on the fourth floor, you could look all the way down to the first floor through the center of the room. They had half walls of concrete in the center, so no one fell through the hole. So we'd have fires and it would go high. In fact, this night we had a really big one. We found a bunch of pallets and stuff. And buddy mine found, I think, my best friend found, he was a pyromaniac. He found a big bucket of grease or something, and he threw it on there, which lit it up like a bonfire. And it was going up past the second floor. So it was a gigantic fire. We couldn't stand real close. You're in an enclosed space. The building's made of metal and concrete. So you could imagine the heat retention inside of there. So we couldn't stand close, but we were basically standing around this fire, and we were just staring and kind of zoning out. You hear a lot of times experiences happen with people, and sometimes you get a mindset where everybody's kind of in a good place, or just zoned out, or quiet and meditating. And you hear a lot of times about vibrational frequencies, that everything on earth has them, even inanimate objects. Humans have them, animals have them, and there's a lot of belief that a lot of times in these events of high strangeness, frequencies are at a specific level. Sometimes humans come into that frequency and they're brought into that space or that bubble that's going on of high strangeness. And that's what I believe happened. We were staring, and all of a sudden the silence was overtaken by a pack of dogs, and we went outside. And on the outside of this building, it was like a broken patio almost, just an outcropping of concrete that we could walk outside on, and still not have anything be able to come up the stairs at us. And pack of dogs ran by us, 7 of them I think there was, and ran right by us, made a quick left, didn't even look at us. Ran over the railroad track, which was 5 to 10 feet from where we were standing. And then just beyond those were gigantic piles of pet coke, coke, which is an ingredient in the steelmaking smelting process to purify and make it hotter. And they had giant mounds of these as far as the eye could see, left to right. You couldn't see the end of them. And they ran up one side and then down the other. And within 3 seconds, you start hearing telltale signs of biting, fighting, barking, growling. A really knockdown, drag out fight was going on. And we thought they were doing it with each other. We were like, what the heck? They were just running together. Why are they fighting? We couldn't see anything, even though, we were up, this mound was so high and they were on the other side of it. It's nighttime. And we just started hearing after 3-4 seconds, there was something else above those dogs. You could hear another animal. You hear like a lower roar and growling and biting, and start hearing yelping, and realize that they're not fighting each other there, and it was something else. And just when it seemed strange enough is when everything started falling apart and going crazy. We had a couple dogs literally in the air come flying over this pile of this material. One The first one, I'll always have it etched into my memory till the day I die. Feet in the air, butt facing us, tail between its legs, head the opposite way. And it's flying like it was shot out of a cannon. And it hits the ground, jumps up, you know, it yelps when it hits the ground and rolls, gets up and limps away. Another one not too long comes after. I think it was like sideways or something, and it hit the ground and blood went everywhere. And, you know, I'll always say this, I'll always repeat the same exact thing. It's certain things of this night. You know, I'm a huge animal lover. I love dogs, especially. We've had dogs our whole lives. We have one right now. Her name's Hadley. And, you know, I remember seeing this dog get up, and there was blood, you know, on the ground, and it had on its left rib cage, all the way as long as its rib cage was, it was like cut open, like flayed open, and it was bleeding, and you could see its ribs, and it was gruesome. And I was heartbroken for this animal. And it went limping away, and it was crying as it went away. And, you know, and we were all like, oh, and I kept saying, oh, I hope that dog doesn't die. I don't know how it could have lived. Maybe it did, and it was a miracle it did. I don't think it did. I felt horrible. It spooked everyone out. Couple more come flying over the top. One hits the top of this material mound, and it just shoots everywhere, just explodes. They get up, run away, and the rest follow suit. They went to our left, which is the way that we would come into this area. There was kind of like a road. And we're in shock watching them. We're like, what the hell was that? And just as we're all, except for my one buddy behind me to my left, looking at them run away, my friend says, what is that? What is that? Look, look, look. And we all turn, and this gigantic jet black wolf bear creature just comes crawling up the top of this mound and stands at the top of it, and it lifts its leg, which introduced that it was a male, and it starts to urinate. And the force of this stream was so strong that just material starts to go up in the air, and you're hearing like a hose was on, and that freaked me out badly. I started truly getting scared. I started thinking, wow, this is, you know, this is abnormal. This thing is so big. It was very shocking. Biggest creature any of us had ever seen. There's two of my buddies, unfortunately, are not here with us anymore. But we talked about it forever, and just we have never been able to find anything as big as what we saw. The build of a polar bear, very long and lean. Its front arms, legs were much longer than the back. It had that kind of jackal or hyena kind of look, where the back legs are shorter than the front. As it was standing up on the mound, it was at an angle, so its front arms were making it higher in the front. And as it's doing its business and looking in the area, you just got the sense of it was marking its territory and saying, don't come back. Well, my buddy to my side, however he did it, got tripped up, fell into that wall, that makeshift wall that we had made. And, you know, you hear that loud and very jarring. All of us looked at him, and, you know, I was like, oh, and
Yeah.
looked right back, and it had snapped its head and looked right at us. And it had almost, you know, for a couple seconds, its eyes like went, you know, like, whoa, I didn't know they were there. And then it got, you know, like that, and it bared its teeth, starts growling. Well, the first thing that grabbed me immediately, and my friends all told me this, was, you know, the first sign of high strangeness, aside from the size. The size was so big, it looked, and again, if you've heard my experience, you always know what I'm going to say. I say the same thing. It looked fake. It was so big, it looked, you know, I thought I was going to wake up from a dream any second. It was just something not of this world. It was something that just immediately you knew was something was off. And it looked at us, and its eyes were glowing a amber orange kind of yellowish tint. And it wasn't eye shine. It was a power source coming from somewhere internally into this creature, and its eyes were emanating not a glow, I mean a bright light coming out of its eyes, and you could see it being so big. You could see the anatomy of the eyes, you could see the pupils and the focusing of the eyes, and you could tell which one of us it was looking at. It looked us down the line. So if it would have been looking at us, it would have looked from its left to right, and I would have been the second last one it looked at. When it looked at you, you felt a physical feeling. It was disturbing. I was locked into those eyes, but it felt like I don't know, like something happened to you, you felt like an anxiety like wash over you when it looked at you, and it was physical. It wasn't just psychological or mental. And what ended up happening next was it roared at us, so loud, so insanely loud. It was, a combination of a bear, a tiger, a lion, and it had a frequency embedded in it. So it was like a and same thing. I say this all the time too. I've seen video over the years of crocs and alligators where they throw their growl or roar, whatever you want, in the water, and water bounces off of their back. And there was infrasound being utilized. And how do I know that? Because I've done a lot of studying over the years about roars of natural animals and how they're affected on prey. It is a lot of time a frequency so low just itself you can't hear with your own ears, but because there was a roar, there was something else in it. And first we all grabbed our ears and we're like, it almost hit us, and you felt a vibration. I felt it go through me, through my chest. Everything vibrated. I mean, it was like, it felt like my eyes kind of vibrated and everything. It causes fluids in your body to vibrate, and your organs jiggle. And when tigers and other things do that to prey, it causes them to get lightheaded and lose their senses. They're easier prey. Whales and elephants utilize infrasound. Whales, they use it so that their songs can be heard miles more than underwater. And we all started feeling affected by this immediately. Me and my best friend, he had said afterwards, we had similar feelings. Basically, my thighs, my quads and hamstrings, all the way down to my ankles, were all super weak, like I had ran miles, and I felt like I was going to go down on my knees, and I was bent over, but I kept looking at this thing. I want to take my eyes off of it. And I remember hearing our two buddies at each end. One was dry heaving and gagging and saying something's wrong, and another one of my buddies said, I feel like I'm going to pass out. And this thing then did one other thing that changed the status quo for the rest of our lives, made us realize that there are things that go bump in the night, that things that we're told are mythology and just in movies, and they don't exist. They're comic books, and that all meant nothing anymore. It stood up on two legs, and it was doubled in size. So you already had a being so big it looked fake. It was so big. Now stood up on two legs. Was when it was down on all fours, I would say 5-6 feet high, so it could look a human in the eyes. Stood up and doubled its size. Again, when we went back years after this happened, and we guesstimated and made some measurements, that ceiling was 18-20 feet high on that first floor. This thing at one point I'll talk about is inside the building, and at the tips of its ears we figured it was probably about 10 feet. So from the skull, 10.5, 11 feet high, this thing stood. And it was just so massive. It had a human-like build. No human was built like this. Again, the eyes, you couldn't take your eyes off of its eyes. But one of the other things that drew my attention, and them immediately, that we talked after, we're like, what about the arms? Oh my God, those arms. Its arms were so big and so long that its hands were down by its ankles. You know, people talk about Sasquatch and, you know, or Sabe, and about how their hands hang past their knees. Well, this was extremely longer. It could have scratched its ankles, the tops of its feet, without bending over. And it had the hawk legs like a dog, huge muscles in its legs and chest. Its chest was, you know, it just all the way just so wide, and huge lats popping up around its neck, and jet black, the blackest black I have ever seen in my life. So black that with the night sky behind it, it stood out against the night sky. It was darker than the night. It was almost like it was sucking light from around it. And the eyes were just glowing extremely bright. And it bared its teeth and growled at us, and you saw every tooth glint, gigantic fangs top and bottom. And it took 2 steps towards us and covered half the distance in 2 steps, which was so horrifying and scary that even though we were feeling effects from this roar that it did to us, that we started to make our way in the building, very clumsily, falling over each other, weak, still felt strange. And we went up to the 3rd floor and walked in front of the fall, you know, went up the stairs, went to this half concrete wall, and just were staring down. Why did we go to the 3rd floor? I don't know. That's just where we went. We stopped. There was no thought to it. And my buddy, who had noticed it first, who outed us by falling into the wall, is screaming bloody murder, running in circles. We have to get out of here, crying. What is that? Oh my God, oh my God. And we start immediately smacking him around and trying to shut him up, and using choice language, and, you know, shake him. Shut up. It's going to come in here. What is wrong? He checked out. He was done. And finally I grabbed him. He was, you know, moving around. So he ended up at one point right in front of me with his back turned to me. And I reached and grabbed his mouth and pulled him, and I actually lifted him up off the ground. So his feet were dangly, like kind of kicked into my shins and stuff at one point. And he's still screaming, even though I'm doing this to him. My other 2 friends were in front of him, shutting him up and shaking him and telling him, please shut up. You're going to get it in. It's going to come in here. It's going to hear you. And finally he starts gasping for air, and I set him down, and we look, are you going to shut up? And he you know, said, yes. Are you going to stop? Yeah. He pulled my hand away, took a deep breath, and then boom, feel a vibration go through the building. You could feel it in your feet. You heard a sound of like dog's nails on concrete. We all knew immediately it was coming in, and we froze. I was stuck. Right at the opening of that makeshift wall, I was staring right there. We weren't making any noise, and we had frozen. And I think even with him screaming and going crazy, if I was still holding his mouth and he had been still screaming with my hand over it, I think right then, he would have shut up right away. He would have just, because we all were like, oh my God. And it starts making its way into this building, and the fire immediately hits it, and you just so black. It was just like my shirt. It was just immensely the deepest black you've ever seen. But when you saw it from overhead and you saw a base of its neck going all the way down to its tail, it had a white stripe going down its back. The hair, the fur was only an inch and a half long. It was very manicured, almost groomed. I mean,
you think that's an alpha, right?
I mean, I couldn't see, and I've said this before, you know, you always hear people talk about with different cryptids that there are levels of them, and ones that are definitely the big man in charge alphas. And there's no way in my mind that there could be any other one of these types of creatures that is bigger or more of a man in charge, if you will. 100%. I've said it before. I think it was an alpha. This I would bet, honestly, I bet my life that I don't care what kind of alpha Sasquatch is out there. I would throw my life savings on a fight between what we saw and a Sasquatch. I don't see how what it's given differently than a Sasquatch with the claws. And, I didn't see the claws. My other three friends said there were 3-4 inch black claws on its hands. I didn't see that. Its teeth were just it was just so many teeth in its mouth, so long. Like when it was walking in the building, it was on all fours again, and you could see it was sniffing the air every once in a while. Again, the eyes are super bright. It went by the wall where it's from the fire. Its shadow had been cast on the wall, and there was no shape or form. It was just all black. And when it went near the wall and it was sniffing the air, you saw it one time, it went like this. And when it was close to the wall, the whole wall lit up with that amber orange color. So again, it wasn't on. There's something going on there.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was very bright. So it lit it up, and it's sniffing the air. And every time it sniffed the air, it curled its lips, and you could see its teeth hanging down and going up. And they just glinted from the fire. And you could see, its scapula's popping up like a big cat as it walked, and there's muscles surrounding it. And you could see every muscle, every form and shape of it. It was just so long and lean. And that's why I said the closest animal we could ever compare to was a polar bear, but so much bigger, so much more muscular and longer and bigger. And you have a grizzly, some of the biggest brown bears. And I remember I watched the video the other night about the biggest brown bear ever recorded. Of course, somebody shot it. Like, what's the freaking, you have something like what good do you get out of, I shot it. Get a knife and try and fight it. Make it more of an equal ground. You're however far with a high powered rifle. You kill something that was such a rarity. That infuriates me when I hear stuff like that. But
Me too.
They showed this bear was humongous. It was relatively small compared to what we saw.
I saw something similar, but much smaller than yours. Yours was an alpha. The one I saw was not. It was probably like 8.5 feet.
Which is still big.
Yeah, it was huge and terrifying, but they are lean. I mean, there's like no fat on their body whatsoever. No. It's just muscle on top of muscle on top of muscle,
100%. Yeah. And again, that's why, we likened it more towards because the only creature we could find similarities of shape was a polar bear. And when you compare a huge brown bear to a huge polar bear, there's a big difference in the shape. Again, much leaner on a polar bear, much more streamlined, longer limbs. It was just huge. And it's walking through the building. You could see also the ears on top of its head were very pointed, and they were cupping. And one was pointing one way, and another would point it, and it was listening. Once in a while, it would, one would drop a little, and it was listening where we were and sniffing the air, and it was salivating so much that you could hear it hitting the concrete above the fire. And it got near the fire. It was 2 feet from the fire, which was insane to us because we couldn't get even close. It was burning us if we got even relatively close. Like I'm talking 10, 15 feet. You're still feeling immense heat. And this thing was butted up right next to it. And it's looking around, and it did something else that gave us another sign of something paranormal. It put its left arm down. It picked it up, and I saw in the light, it had more hands. It had 5 digits. And the easiest thing I've ever been able to compare them to were like giant raccoon hands. Had huge knuckles though. So this part side, which was different than like raccoons, if you look at raccoons, the way they're shaped, on the other side, they're just as flat as both sides. Well, this had gigantic knuckles. So there was a big difference. Like it looked like, you know, when a man wears boxing gloves, how big over it's not, its fists were so oversized. And it lifted its front left arm and put it down and close to the fire. All of a sudden, what happened is its left front arm did the predator effect. It basically cloaked, and I saw it. My best friend saw it. Two other of my buddies, they did not see it, but we both saw it. We both said to each other, "What about?" I said, "Hey man, did you see what?" And he finished my sentence. Its arm went invisible. Yes. You could still kind of see fire in it and stuff kind of reflecting in and out or through it. But what was strange too was not only did it cloak, and that's the only part of it did. So it gives you the idea they're able to hide. They can cloak whatever part of their body that they want. And then what happened was the fire actually ended up reaching out towards its arm. As soon as it cloaked, the fire like jutted out and started making ribbons and shapes and stuff towards the arm, much almost exactly like when you see video of the sun, of the magnetic storms that it has on its surface. And then 3 seconds later, it went back to black, it went back to normal, and the fire real quick just went right back into the normal shape, which blew our minds, me and my buddy. And right at that point, it made one more sniff in the air and it snapped its head up and it saw us. And my heart sank. And I know I turned pale because my other friends were pale. And it stood back up on 2 legs and it threw its arms out to its sides and was looking, and it roared at us. And it was so much louder than it was before because we're in an enclosed space. The whole building shook. I even remember, you know, I've never said this before, but I remember this. You even heard like some of the metal beams vibrate from how loud it roared in that building. And there was like a hum from them. And we, you know, grabbed our ears and turned away. And I thought, oh crap, like for a split second, we're going to get sick again. Nothing happened. And we've gone over this over and over and over. And I've thought about it. We've talked about it. We truly believe the reason we didn't get that infrasound hit us like that again was because we're up, you know, 20, 25 feet in the air looking down. It's down here, and we have a half concrete wall in front of us. The floors of the concrete are between us in a way. So I truly believe the concrete blocked that infrasound and helped us. And it looked pissed and it looked angry and it was baring all of its teeth. And it ended up, after it was looked at us for a couple seconds, it looked to its right and it saw the stairs. And we're like, oh, in my head, I'm like, oh crap. And it looked back at us and it looked back again and it looked back, and I thought it smiled at us. My other buddy said it just was just baring its teeth more. I think it smiled at us, and it dropped down to all fours as it's walking. It jumped down and it took off towards the stairs. And, you know, it had a really long tail, a very thick, long tail that looked exactly like a panther's tail. It was not shaggy. There was no mane on this thing. No shaggy, unkempt, you know, hair at all. Very beautiful, streamlined animal. Obviously, only created for one thing, to be a predator. The ultimate predator. And just as it ran for those stairs, my other 2 buddies, the one who had flipped out, he turns around and I think, even looking, I think he screamed no too. And he's still alive. I'm going to ask him that if he remembers saying no, but I don't know why that just popped into my head now. I swear he might have screamed no. He turned around and he shot to those stairs that brought him up to the 4th floor. And at the top of the 4th floor was an access set of stairs, maybe 4 or 5 stairs that would take you out to the roof. To our left on the wall at the top of the stairs was also a doorway outside of the fire escape. Fire escape was broken away on the third floor down, laying in a heap at the bottom, so there was no way to go down. You could go to the fire escape and run up to the roof where my other buddy ran outside. You heard him running up, and he's lucky the stairs didn't give away too. I talked about that too, dude. You were nuts running on those stairs. But he wasn't thinking about the stairs. He was thinking about what was coming up. And they met each other at the top, stuck up there, because you couldn't go down the stairs because you'd run right into it. So I was frozen. My best friend to my right was frozen, and I started 100% truly. This is our moment. We're gonna die. I swear, it has to be the way that people that unfortunately meet their demise, either by being murdered, shot, being in war, police, or somebody in a gunfight, or when your moment has come. And my buddy said he said, I thought that was it, and I 100%, I'm going to die. And I wasn't having my life flash before my eyes. It was super quick. It was so fast. But I thought about my family real quick, just like a picture of my family in my head, my dog, me. I don't know why, playing football. I played through college, and I could have ended up making it to the NFL, but I ended up blowing my knee out. I've had 14 surgeries on my left knee, and I had it replaced about 6 months ago. And I was going to go to we were getting ready to go when the summer was over to the school we ended up going to, high school, a Catholic school. Is really well known, not only for just being a good private school academically, but the athletics and the football specifically is just like second to none, one of the best football programs in the country. And it just popped in my head, and this thing hits the stairs, and it starts flying up there. And when it hit the stairs, it started to turn right as it hit the stairs. And I noticed immediately its tail had flung out to its side, to its left. It was actually utilizing its tail as kind of like a counterweight or a rudder, kind of almost like that mindset of where you're riding a 3 or 4 wheeler or a snowmobile, and you turn to the right, you have to lean to the left. That's what the tail looked like it was being used for.
Like balance, like it's
yeah, counterbalance.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and it was curling. It turned to the left as it was running up, and it came real close to the wall. And then as it was running straight up, the tail straightened out. And then it got up, bam, to the second floor, and it ran around the room to go up from the second or third floor. And that's, another level of this is it. And, I started having true thoughts of, we're all going to be torn apart. No one will ever find us or see us again. And it started running up that second flight of stairs to go to the third floor. When you get whoever or whatever ran up those stairs, when you get to the top of it, you would meet me. That's who was going to be met first. And it got to roughly 5-6 feet from me, and it looked like you could even see muscles and stuff tense. It was about to pounce. And right at that moment is one of the most beautiful sounds I've ever heard is the train's horn. It actually had come by the building, and we all believed that they saw that fire that we had going. Some people had said, you think it maybe he saw it because, they'd be so high up in the train. He would have been at an angle if he would have looked the right way. He could have seen over that makeshift wall easily and saw into the building. I don't think he saw anything but the fire. And he just laid on that horn to just let people know, whoever, that there's, that building's on fire or someone's in there or whatever. And I'm sure he got on the radio and whatever. And this thing stops 5-6 feet from me. It could have reached its arm out and grabbed me. And it stopped, and it looked at me, and it turned, and it looked back at the opening of the building, and back, and then back, and then back again. And it did kind of like almost like, and then it kind of growled, showed its teeth, and then looked at me one last time, turned around and took off. And they shot down that flight of stairs in a split second. It got to the top of that last set of stairs, and then something supernatural happened again. All of a sudden, real fast, like this wasn't slowly it happened like bang. There were no more legs touching the stairs. There was barely anything jutting out from the bottom. It looked kind of like just stumps coming out from the bottom. It was more of like a big amorphous kind of shaped shadow with a little bit of the anatomy of what was like before. It wasn't moving so fast that it just lost shape. It had lost shape. And it was a big, basically black shadow. You know, I've heard a lot of stories about shadow people, and I've seen a lot of things about shadow people and what they look like and things. That's what it looked like. It was super black, kind of see ears, kind of see a muzzle, and just more than anything, just a big mass.
Let me ask you on that. Okay, because I've seen the shadow thing from it. Have you ever seen a shadow person? Like, have you ever seen a demon? Those are demons. These creatures are much thicker, much darker, much blacker than demons by far. It is unusual. It's very unusual. Anyways,
And very disturbing.
very disturbing.
After it lost the shape, almost like taking a flashlight and just going like that. That's how fast it left the building, and it was gone. And it was and we all, well, not we all, me and my best friend saw it. As it left the building, as soon as it left the building, me and my best friend start screaming, immediately screaming, help, help us. My other two buddies had already started to make their way down because they heard the train. They heard us screaming, that they ran down. I remember looking at them, and they ran over us, and they were screaming too before they even got to us. And my one buddy who had really lost it almost had kind of like a half smile. He's like, you know, like, help, help, help. Like, you know, we're going to be okay. And we're screaming, and you could hear the clunk, 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 clunk in the train, and boom, and boom, farther and farther and farther away. And at one point we thought, well, they're stopping, they're stopping. They didn't stop. They kept going, and then they were gone. And then the absolute nightmare fear set back in that it's going to walk right back in. It's coming. We were fully expecting it to walk right back in. It didn't, thank God. And we ended up being in that building for over an hour. We made our way down to the first floor where I had said, we have to make a run for it. We have to leave. The longer we stay, we're giving it a chance to come back. It might even be watching us. And we kept, each one of us kept taking, like we would at different times, because we weren't saying, look, it's just, we were all so nervous. We just kept looking outside to see, because if it was out there, you would have saw those eyes. And even if its eyes stopped glowing, it was so black, you would have saw it. It would have stood out. Yeah. Again, we looked up, you know, the moon was out, and it was lighting stuff up somewhat. And as I told you before we started, we found out the phase of the moon was full. So, you know, you would have saw it. And it got to where we were getting ready to leave. And my one buddy who had really been losing it finally completely had a nervous breakdown and just completely lost it. No, I'm not going to say that. I think he lost some functions too. Basically, we told him, you know, I got very angry with him because he kept saying, we got to stay here. Somebody will come. Let's just wait. I don't want to go out there. Please don't make. Let's stay. And I grabbed him. I said, you listen to me. You're going to stay here, and you're going to die by yourself. We're leaving. You can stay. And he's the whole time crying, please, Matt, please don't leave. Please, we have to stay. And I screamed, and I MF'd him, and I said, you're going to die alone? or you come with us. It's up to you. We're not staying here anymore. And we started leaving, and we let him. He basically was choking, he was pulling on the back of our shirts, and me and my best friend, he had a hand on each, and we pulled him out of the building. And we made a run for it. Now, my one friend lived across the street from the steel mills, but when I say lived across the street, it wasn't close. So outside of his house was a street. Just past that street with a chain link fence, just over that chain link fence was the highway, which was Route 422 Youngstown Warren Road. And you'd have to cross 4 lanes of traffic to get over to the other side to enter the area to get to where we would go, which would take 30 minutes at least. So we had a long, nightmare fuel drenched, horrifying run, and we were exhausted. And the more scared you are, the more difficult it is to run and to get physical. So, every sound we heard was just a nightmare. We thought it was it signaling its return and was going to end up behind us. You kick a piece of gravel or a rock or step on something, break a stick, or the wind would blow, because it was a little windy that night, and the wind would blow, you hear leaves, and you'd think it was that thing behind us. We'd all stop and look. And finally, we got to the last part of getting out of the area, which was a huge, huge mountainous amount of gravel and dirt, which going in, you could walk down it sideways and stay upright. Going up it, you had to get down on all fours and climb up, and we would always lose our footing, and somebody would slide back down. And you want to talk about horrifying when you start losing, and it happened to all of us multiple times, because we weren't trying to keep our footing and we were just as fast as we could go, and we were exhausted, filthy, crying, and start screaming, "Is it behind me? Is it behind me?" Finally, we got up there and we got across the street to my buddy's house, and his parents weren't home. And we were sitting in the yard, on the porch, on the stairs, and we had drank water till we were sick. And we just, for an hour at least, just sat there and just stared across the highway towards the area. We couldn't see it, but we could you could see the tops of the blast furnace, but that's all you could see. Just in complete and utter shock, just staring at the area. And we made our way back to my best friend's dad's house, who worked for the city, and he was in charge of a lot of stuff. And long story short, my buddy who lived across the street, his parents didn't believe us at all. My buddy who lost his you-know-what, his parents accused us of doing drugs, which we didn't. We didn't even drink. We were 14-year-old good kids. My mom didn't believe it. She thought we saw a bear or something, because that's what my dad told her. My dad and my best friend's dad were different stories. So they saw us come in, and they knew something was wrong immediately. And he wanted to know where we were. First of all, police officers during this time wouldn't be down in that area by themselves or even with partners at 11, 12 o'clock at night in Youngstown, Ohio in 1987. He thought something happened to his son. He didn't know we were all together down there. We told him where we were, and he flipped. He went nuts. "What are you doing out there? That place is falling apart. We're demolishing buildings. We're getting rid. Please, people get hurt. People throw bodies down there. They shoot people down there. What are you doing?" Blah, blah. He mentioned the wild dogs and homeless people that are dangerous down there. And he said, "What happened?" And we started telling him, and his mom was like, "What the hell are you guys? What are they talking?" He shushed her, my best friend's dad, and he said, "I have it. They have bears down there. Don't worry about it." She goes, "Take care of it. I'm going to bed." She goes, "You're in trouble." She made a comment about her son, like, you're in trouble tomorrow for being out that late. And he flipped on us, and when we told him what we saw, he got this look of fear and anxiety on his face that he knew what we were talking about. He called my dad, and my dad came, which was, they were furious that, again, they didn't know where I was too. And he took my dad in a different part of the house, and he talked. I remember at one part hearing my dad say, "What the hell are you talking about?" And they called us in there, and my dad was standing there, and he was white. He was disturbed. He looked scared. And he said, well, I talked to your dad, Matt, and we're not going to discuss this with anybody, because if you guys tell your friends, everyone's going to want to go down there and see it. And just the buildings falling apart itself, or people could get killed down there. Like, and we'd be in there, you get chunks of concrete would fall from the ceiling. Stairs were falling out from under your feet if you were running up. There were parts of staircases missing, just rebar sticking up, big holes in the wall. The place was falling apart. Very lucky we didn't get hurt or killed just from the buildings falling apart. We did some crazy stuff, but I went home with my dad. On the way home, I was bawling. Please believe me. You gotta believe me. And I said, my dad knew me, and he's not here with us anymore, and neither's my mom. But he kept looking at me with this fear in his eyes, and I could tell he was thinking about, he wasn't saying, I don't believe you, or you didn't see. He wasn't saying anything. He just was looking at me like, holy crap. We got home, and my dad said, don't say a word to anybody here, not your siblings. My 3 older siblings are older than me and my younger brother. There's my oldest sister's like 11 years older than me. Then my other brother is like 9. Then my other sister's like 6. And then there's that lull in between. And then me. And then my little brother's a year younger than me. So we were separated from them. So we grew up together. He's like, don't tell your brother, because we were inseparable. He's like, don't say anything to your mother. As soon as I got in the house, I started telling my mom. And he yelled at me, and she's like, well, Ken, his name was Ken. And he's like, Ken, what the hell is he talking about? They saw a bear. Don't worry about it. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He said my best friend's dad's name. He said he knows what's down there. He said they have bears down there. Some of them, I think he said mange or something. She said, I'm going to bed, That's very similar to what my best friend's mom said. You're in trouble, blah, blah, don't you ever do that again and be out this late. We've been horrified where you were. And he made me promise not to talk about it with my siblings. And, my older sister recently, I told her what had happened, and we got in a big fight. She didn't believe me. She's like, what are you talking about? Why wouldn't we know about this? Why wouldn't, mom and dad tell us? And I told her exactly what happened. And I said to her, why would I lie to you? You're my sister. Like, if I was lying about this, I would say, hey, yeah, I got these people going. I'm just kind of just trying to get something going here. And I'm just made up a story. I said, why would I lie to you? You know me. Look at my eyes. Look at my face. Why would I lie to you? We really, almost to a point where I had basically said, I'm never going to speak to you again from this. We're fine. We're okay. But we really, it was bad. It was a few months ago.
There's nothing worse than when you're telling this story that makes you look crazy, okay? You're telling this story, and the people closest to you are like, no, it didn't.
Yeah.
When they know you,
Yeah, she accused me of lying, and it blew my mind. I was so upset and so angry.
Yeah.
Week later, my best friend said he got his dad to sit down. And basically, in a nutshell, he told him he knew what we were talking about, that police had gotten calls about it, that they've seen it before, people that work on the railroad track, which, by the way, I've been contacted by hundreds of people since I've been telling my experience over the last 2.5, 3 years. People that work security down at there, that work down there even now, say there's weird things that happen. Around that time, there was I've been reached out to a couple ex-cops from Youngstown Some security guys that work down there saying, we corroborate everything you're saying. We know what you're talking about. We'd be down there working security around the railroad. We have something paralleling us just in the brush. Walk when we would walk, stop when we would stop. You'd hear growls. You'd see strange colored lights in the woods, and it would stay just out of our sight. Comments that my best friend's dad said that one or maybe more that both of them, the homeless people, were killed by this thing or others. So he flat out told them he knew what he was talking about, and it has completely changed my life ever since this occurred. And I always had a feeling of like I knew there was something else going on around us. And I still this day always have this feeling of like I was meant for something more than just your normal human's lifespan and just doing the normal regular stuff. Like, so it's a double-edged sword for me. I am glad that I know.
Support Matt by joining Planet 412 on YouTube. Let's join Matt on Facebook on Planet 412 and join the group. And let's support Matt and his research team by buying some of his merch. And these are some really awesome t-shirts. I've left links for Planet 412 in the description below.
I'm upset too because two of my friends are gone. They're gone because they started living a lifestyle that contributed to their deaths because of the severe PTSD and stress from what occurred. So they started doing things, and you could figure out for yourself what they started doing just to cope. And it led to their deaths. That's all I'm going to say. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out. My best friend, he's one of the ones dead, and my buddy that lived across the street from that place is the other one. Then my other friend who had lost his stuff is still here. He has two psychiatrists, a psychologist, a counselor. He's on multiple meds. He can't talk about it for more than a couple minutes without starting to like stutter and getting really freaked out. I've had problems to this day. Whenever I talk about this, it's not fun for me. It's not easy for me to discuss it. I've been able to handle it the best out of the four of us through the years. It's just something that was mind numbing. And, my buddy that lost it, we didn't hear from him for over 2 weeks. He didn't speak or anything. His parents thought we were doing drugs, like that he had a bad trip on, acid or something. And that's why he wasn't speaking. And that's why he said he saw a werewolf. And,
looks like a werewolf.
It was the description fit everything that we were taught as at that point in 1987. They never hear of DOGMAN back then. We didn't have cell phones and the internet and stuff like that back then, so there wasn't really ways to look all this up. But I did a lot of research through the years, and I've learned a lot. And I actually sought out my priest from our church and told him what happened. Fully expected him to, be like, "The heck are you talking about? This guy's crazy." But he 100% believed me. Said that, and I quote, what he said. He said exactly. He said, "Matthew, sometimes in life there are those of us who find out that there are other worlds and other types of beings out there. Sometimes they bleed into our realm or our world. And some of us see it, some of us have experiences with them." And he said, "You did." He said, "I believe you were saved, that there was divine intervention." And I agree with him. We were done. We were dead. There was somebody interrupted that situation. There were guardian angels there. God stepped in, and it wasn't time. And my priest also talked about people getting possessed and about demons and exorcisms. And he spoke just about, he he knows he's had some things happen with him, and he knows that these things exist. And he talked about demons and things, and he thought mine was a demon, and definitely not natural. It was just a mind-numbing event that has really put me in possession of knowledge. Again, that's a double-edged sword. I want my friends back. I can't change time. I'm glad I know that this other realm and world is out there, and that these things exist. I would just recommend to anybody. I have a lot of people say to me, "I'm so jealous. I wish this could happen to me." No, you do not. This cannot. And I've told hundreds of people this who have said that to me. I swear to you, no, you do not. You don't want to be in a situation that you think you're going to die, that you're affected, that your friends or family end up basically killing themselves in a way because they can't handle knowing what happened, so they have to deal with it in other manners. And people ask me, what would be at least your opinion if you were to tell somebody that, hopefully if they want to at least see something, what should they do? My number one opinion about that and advice is stop looking down, stop looking at your phone, take your earbuds out, people watch, look around, look up at the sky, pay attention, try and notice details. You'll see something. Open your mind up. People that can't fathom that these things exist, that refuse, that say we're all crazy, that's seen something. I honestly, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I pity those people. It's actually sad that they can't grasp enough or open their mind enough to at least admit that there's a possibility that something like this happens. But there's those that just refuse. It bothers me if someone says that. The good thing, the majority, which has been pretty unprecedented with me since I've been doing this, is, we're talking 90, 95, 96% of anybody, millions, have heard my experience just on what lurks beneath with Dominic, Joshua Nocchio, his interview with me, which is only 3 months old. It's got over 1 million views. So I've done, 20 something interviews. So couple million at least have seen my interviews and seen me tell this. And the bulk, 95 to 98% of them all believe me, because they have at least been able to say, this guy, you can't deny when I've gotten really emotional and stuff. And if you want to hear the most detailed interview I've ever given, and most emotional I've ever gotten, is What Lurks Beneath, is that one. And I've had human behavioral PhDs, psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers. Adam Davies, who's big into the supernatural and stuff, used to be an ex-professional court cross-examiner. They've all put their stamps on me. People have put their PhDs out there and their names, and the thousands of comments. I've been reached on Messenger, and they're telling me that they believe me and everything, and that they commented in comments, this is what I do, this is my name, this is my PhD. What we were taught, Matt, shown zero signs of lying or deception. And not one of these I'm talking somewhere along the lines of 10 of these human behavioral PhDs, multiple other professionals, never one has ever said that I think Matt's not telling the truth. They've all said the same.
You can tell in your testimony. As I'm listening to you, and it's not just because I've experienced it, but as I'm listening to you, I'm reading your body language. I'm literally feeling what you're talking about. I'm feeling what you're going through. There's, you can tell. A lot of people talk about a lot of stuff, and sometimes you question, are they, full of it or not? But the minute I heard your story, I knew immediately. And there was some interesting details that just hit me like a ton of bricks, because I had not heard anybody else say it. Like the predator thing. I had several encounters. First, The first one was when I was on the highway and I was going through Kansas, and this thing shot across me, and I felt like for that split moment as I'm watching this thing fly in front of my car as I'm stomping on the brakes, I see its eyes, the same amber ones that light up like a headlights almost, you know what I mean? And the fear that hit me in that moment was horrifying, just horrifying. And it felt like for a minute, it was just like slow motion as I'm looking at every detail of this thing and it's flying across, and it freaked me out. And that was my first encounter. And I'm telling you, and then after that, it's like, I don't know, you were talking about the high strangeness. My life has been full of high strangeness. And it seems like, people like me and we just seem to notice these things that most people may, I don't know if it's because they're in their phone or not, but
Closed closed off, and they are.
it just don't they just don't see stuff.
Yeah, the phones have taken a lot from people. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, anyways, I'm just moved into this place, and then I'm telling you about the predator part. I just moved into this place and it already feels weird within the first week. It felt like I was being watched or something strange. I actually saw something like a bat that came over me when I was laying on my couch. I was very uncomfortable about sleeping in the upper room. And I mean, I still did sometimes, my upstairs. And I'm laying there and this thing comes out and my hand shoots around and I'm looking at it. And as soon as I look at it, it flies away. My opinion is the Holy Spirit was rebuking it while I was asleep. A couple of days later, I'm like, this is ridiculous. Let me just sleep upstairs. This is kind of, I'm being silly. Nobody's watching me. I go upstairs and I fall asleep and I'm laying there, and all of a sudden it's like everything in me just knew that there was a predator in the room. And it's like I woke up and went, and I looked, and there was this shimmer thing, and it was taken back, and it jumps back like she just saw me. Like, how's
Hmm.
she seeing me? And the weirdest thing is, all of a sudden it's like my mind went into this brain fog, and the next, I don't have any memory after that. It's like I was out. Yeah. And me and my son actually, not too long after that, had these very strange encounters. And I don't know if they took us out of the house or was something they put in my mind, but I'll explain. First, my son sees it first. He's laying next to me. And the next day he tells me, I saw the craziest thing in the middle of the night, but it didn't scare me. See, the thing is, these things can make you extremely terrified, or they can make you extremely calm. They can give you a sense of calm, which is strange to me, but it's my experience. I've experienced both sides of it. And so my son tells me about this, but he's like, oh, I wasn't scared of it. And I just went back to sleep. And it was sitting at the end of the bed. It said his fur like poofed out like this, just in the face. Everything else, like the shorter hair, pitch black. His ears are poking straight up like this and just looking at him. And he couldn't remember the color of the eyes. But the same thing happened to me twice, but slightly different, like the next couple of nights. The first time, I just see this creature going like this near the end of the bed. And I don't know why, but I went right back to sleep. So I see it doing, yeah, it freaked me out. I don't know why I'm going back to sleep. Who would do that? It's just not even natural. Right. Right. Yeah. So
That,
it's crazy. And then the next time I wake up out of a dead sleep, kind of like I did with the shimmer thing. And this thing's right in my face like this. Now, well, about like this. It was probably about maybe a foot away from my face, but felt like it was huge. Its head was like this, like so big I can't even fit it in the screen. That's how it's spread out. Ears straight up, just like my son said, pitch black, and it had blue eyes and like beams, like these beams just shooting out. right? And this is my next memory. Anybody watches my channel knows that I'm an abductee and a lot of crazy stuff happens to me. It's happened to me my whole life. And I've just recently started coming out about some of these things because I know how it looks. I know I'm now the crazy girl. That's fine. But anyway,
Interrupt you real quick. Honestly,
yeah.
I really believe that things are really starting to change in this 2024. There's a lot less making fun of than there used to be, and that's the way it should be.
That's true. And I feel like literally the veil is lifting. More and more of these incidents are happening. So anyways, this is my next memory. And I believe this happened simultaneously. I wake up on a mat. I don't know if it's just them showing me something or I was there. I really feel like I was there.
Mm.
But anyways, so I wake up on this mat in this strange cave-like place. And but I'm not noticing my surroundings yet. Let me start from the beginning. I wake up, I'm laying on a mat. There's something laying next to me, and I see these blue eyes swirling like this. And then all of a sudden I see a man there. He stands up, he has no clothes on, he walks across the room. And then my next memory is me coming out of this cave-like building. It's got a fire over here, and I'm coming out of this cave building. It's like kind of in a valley, and like there's those hills going up, and then there's these mountains all around. And I come up, and there's this stone thing that shoots up out of the ground. And I know just from memory, because I was remembering that I had already been over there. And it's kind of like this. And when you put your hand on it, this information comes into your mind. And what he said to the person, because I had remembered that had already happened to me, and there is a woman there, and he's doing this with this woman. She's putting her hand on the thing, and he's saying, "We have been lied to about our history." That's all I remember. I start walking up the hill, and that was that. That's the end of that. And that was my last encounter in this way. It's very strange.
How long ago was this?
This was in about 2017, I think. Yeah, maybe 2016, somewhere around there.
Very in-
It's weird. It's weird. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, people, when you've had stuff really happen to you, and again, like you had alluded to, I can't tell you how many, stories I hear where I'm just kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Just cringeworthy. You're almost like embarrassed for the people doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
There's channels out there that, God bless them, they want content. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, that's
Some
true.
of it is just so
Out
unbelievable.
there, out there. Yeah. Well, I know my stuff sounds nuts, but trust me when I say I did not want to talk about this. Literally, I've been praying about it. I've suffered with PTSD for so long. I've learned to cope with it. Um, for me, God really pushed me to do this. Is outside of my comfort zone. This is something God brought me to do and gave me the skills to do it like overnight. I mean, it's like um this is just I'm on the spectrum, and I'm antisocial, and I'm an introvert. For me to be doing this right now it's just I'm out of my element, and
Um,
it's become easy, huh?
you are, I've had a lot of people reach out to me in the thousands now who just have said thank you for doing that.
Amen.
Helped me. I was going to take my experience to the grave. Now I'm not. A lot of older
That's what I was gonna do.
people, 60s to older,
Mhm.
um, have reached out to me. Yeah, I was, I had decided I was going to take this to the grave, and I had a near-death experience in April of 2022. I had 10 surgeries, and I almost died a couple times, and the third time I almost passed away from complications from surgeries. My heart stopped over 90 seconds. I saw my mom and dad who are not here, and it was as real as you and I talking. And after that happened, I decided, I'm gonna say what happened. I'm not holding back anymore. And I'm glad I did. And just the fact of anybody, one person says you've helped me because you had the guts to do that, then it was worth it.
Amen to that. I mean, I really appreciate what you're doing. For me, I was like, when I heard that, it was just your testimony on there. I was like, wow, I just have to talk to this guy. I don't reach out to people a lot, but I had to talk to you. And I'm really glad you came on here and did this interview. Thank
I'm
you.
I time, and I'm glad that you also have spoken about what happened to you. I believe you.
I've been talking about this and writing about this and studying this for years about frequencies. And I find it very interesting what you were talking about with the frequencies with the animals. I had actually not considered that until I heard you talking about it. And I kind of looked into it a little bit. But I've been talking about frequencies and magnetic fields
Hmm?
for years. And there is an entire world that we live in, right? There's an entire world that shares the space that we live in. I don't think
Hmm.
people truly understand there's an alternate reality right here, right here. You know what I'm saying?
Both of us right now, there's beings walking by us.
Oh,
I'm 100% on board of the multiverses that they talk about in Marvel and DC comics,
mhm.
well, universes. Again, my priest talked about, he talked about the veil and about things bleeding in and out of our realities. And sometimes, we are brought into their area for whatever reason, and I do believe it's a frequency or magnetic anomalies. And you have people that do ghost hunting that have sensors that register magnetic frequencies and fields. So that is all 100% testable, and that area of high strangeness where they investigate ghosts and paranormal, they have proved that there's stuff going on there, physical, actual proof of it. So yeah, 100%, I do not doubt that at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. There's something to it. And it's all related. For me, in my research, I find that these creatures are chimeras, stem from the biblical point of view of the Nephilim.
Mhm.
That these beings have been shown on cave walls, Egyptian art, Egyptian walls, hydroglyphs, all of these things. These have been around for a very long time. These are the hybrid beings of the fallen angels, which is a race. I call them the elder race. They're the ones who rejected, God, and they ended up on their own. Well, they were breaking all the laws of God, having sex with women, creating all these different hybrid beings, creating races of beings that should have never existed. And they live right among us, and they have the ability to go in and out of our dimension through portals. And whenever there's a portal or something, like that, or if there's a building that has a high concentration of them coming in and out, there's frequency issues there. I can hear them. I mean, it's like some people are more sensitive to some of these things. It's more like you feel it rather than you hear it, and it reverberates through your body. But even the portals have this frequency. And I've had a lot of experience with abductions, and they knock you out with frequency. This is fallen angel technology, and they literally knock you out with frequency.
100%. Yeah, I mean, humans can do
Mhm.
that. So
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when they come in, retrieve, and do things like that. But that's a whole nother topic. It's a whole nother topic altogether. But I believe it all goes together. That's why I'm bringing it up. It's all,
With all of it.
yeah,
I
yeah.
like talking about, cave painting and stuff, you just talking on Native Americans themselves. how far back, their language is telling stories basically, and how far back as far as you can look, they've talked about Sasquatch and cryptids and things like that. The cave paintings, I forget, in Arizona or something like that, of the big hairy man of Sasquatches and little ones and female. I mean, that stuff goes so far back. Pictures of aliens and other things on, in pyramids and
Absolutely.
some of the oldest artwork in the world has pictures of UFOs in them and things like that.
So true.
Yeah, I think we're on the cusp of a huge awakening, and us being able to find out. I hope before you and I are gone, that we have more things let out, the cat out of the bag, so to speak. More than just a few of these videos of UAPs or UFOs that the Navy. I think something big's on its way. I really do.
I do too. I really think they're doing a slow rollout, to get the public used to it. But I also believe that they want they're doing it so they can control the narrative personally.
Well, Hollywood also is part
Oh,
of
yes.
desensitizing the world to it. A lot of people a lot of people have no idea. There's a lot of truths that government agents and people that have worked in governments and stuff and that are in the know about these high strangest events have come out and spoken about. Everything you see in movies you think might be science fiction, there's a lot of truths in it, like just like myth. There's a lot of truth to mythology.
Absolutely.
It's not up.
Yeah,
So
mythology is stemmed from a true event that they put in story form so people will remember. That's what mythology is, and people need to remember that.
yeah, and again, what me and my friends saw was just supposed to be just myth. Well, that myth stood up on two legs and came after us. So
a lot of people might try and say, like, I've heard a lot of people say, well, those are just demons. They're not. No, these are physical beings with hair, sweat, saliva. They're alive over there. They're not like disembodied.
they have
that are demons.
More ability than others. There's different out there, but
yeah,
real at one point, as you and I. So
yeah, it's creepy. More people need to know about this stuff. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on tonight, and I hope to have you on again really soon.
Sure, absolutely. It was an honor. I had a good time. Thank you for having me.
And God bless you. Support Matt by joining Planet 412 on YouTube. Let's join Matt on Facebook on Planet 412 and join the group. And let's support Matt and his research team by buying some of his merch. And these are some really awesome t-shirts. I've left links for Planet 412 in the description below.
I can hear you call my name. I can hear you call my name. I can hear you call my name. Come to the table, cup runneth over. Come drink your fill.